Sure. Hi, Alex. I'm David Chechelashvili.
I'm Alan Brown.
And we are talking to you from Auckland, New Zealand, where it's currently just after 10 p.m. So thank you so much for having us here. We are both lecturers in music and music production at SAE here in New Zealand. And we will be presenting our paper called Pulse Pattern Permutation, Applying Schillinger's Pulse Interference in Computer-Assisted Composition. This is a project that Alan and I did over the last sort of 6 months or so, where we tried to put some of Joseph Schillinger's mathematical compositional ideas into software, sort of digitize it, so to speak. Yeah, that's our talk. So I can drive the slides here, can't I? Yes. Okay. All right. So I'll just start at the beginning here, and Alan and I will sort of co-present this as we go. But essentially, hi, Andrew. Essentially, our idea was to explore rhythmic generation or algorithmic rhythmic generation in computer music composition. And for that task, there are lots of approaches, as you probably are aware, all sorts of genetic algorithms and probabilistic stochastic Markovian processes that allow for generation of interesting and complex rhythms. We took a slightly different path where we looked at Joseph Schillinger's system. Joseph Schillinger was a theorist and composer in the first half of the 20th century. In 1941, he wrote his first volume of the Schillinger's composition system, and he sort of wanted to combine mathematical rigor with musical creativity. In 1943, I believe he wrote the second volume to that work. I think combined sort of 1,500 words or so of a comprehensive work in trying to relate mathematics and numbers to music. I suppose right at the top, it's worth saying that in Schillinger's mind, his system wasn't sort of a replacement to traditional harmonic theory. It was just there to aid composers to maybe break out of habitual ways of structuring their music, both rhythmically and harmonically, and in terms of its form as well. While it was this all-encompassing comprehensive system, in our work we're using a very narrow, just sliver of his ideas, and that idea is what he calls pulse interference of integers in order to create rhythmic patterns. Pulse interference is a fairly simple idea. The idea is that you would take two pulses at different frequencies, and then you would play them together, and you would get a third, more complex rhythm. And so this was his way of combining these these varied rhythmic patterns to create polymeters and syncopation, all sort of with this certainty of mathematics behind it. So we took this idea as our point of departure, and yeah, went from there. Essentially, the process involves very simple mathematics. We take, to start with, for example, a time signature, common time of 4/4, and according to Schillinger's system, you break it up into its combinatorial pieces that are non-even pieces. So in 4/4, you couldn't have 2 + 2, that wouldn't work. It would have to be 3 + 1 or 1 + 3 to make up the 4. And then you apply some algebraic processes like squaring and expansion to create these new rhythms and new scales. So the process itself is described in a bit more detail in the next slide, and I can see I'm pretty sure I had some audio examples here that don't seem to be embedded in here anymore, but I'll talk through it, no problem. We've got some video examples later on. Yeah, let's say we take this 4-4 time signature and divide it into 3 plus 1, and then you square it, right? So if you square remembering high school algebra or maybe middle school algebra, a plus b squared, you could get this longer equation, a squared plus a times b times a plus b squared. And so if we apply that to 3 plus 1, we get this these factors. And so 9 here is the duration of a count, right? So if this is a 16 count 4-4 pattern, for example, or length, then the first event would happen, then it would last for 9 counts. Then the second event would last for 3 counts, and another event would last for 3 counts, and the final event that would last for 1 count. And so that is now a rhythmic pattern that we derived by doing some basic maths to the time signature. And of course, we can reverse this, right? So we can play this pattern backwards. So you'd get 1 followed by an event that lasts for 3 counts, and another 3 counts, and then 9 counts. And then if you took these two things and you created an interference pattern from the two of them, it just means you play them on top of one another, which would give you this more complex pattern. So in this picture here, the diagram sort of shows a 16 count 1 bar, and then here would be the 1-3-3-9 pattern, and then the 9-3-3-1 pattern, and the orange pattern would be this expanded big pattern here. So you can imagine sort of what that would sound like.
Yeah. Plus the idea that Schillinger was about with that integer combination was really to develop some sort of balance. And you can see with the generated numbers at the end, there's a palindromic equilibrium to them. That was what he was about, was creating some sort of balance within a rhythmic structure by this algebraic process. Yeah.
So this pattern, of course, is symmetric down its middle. Here, it's same backwards as it is forwards. So yeah, he was sort of preoccupied with these ideas of having this mathematical integrity to music. In terms of our implementation and the way that we put it together, we built a fairly simple pure data patch that would do all that maths, and that would generate MIDI notes from those rules. We also added a couple of real-time switching abilities to the patch, just so we can sort of almost improvise some of the elements of the patch, and then using sort of MIDI over Bluetooth, we connected it to an iPad running AUM synthesizers for our final performance, where we get some of our examples that will follow. The patch looks like this. I sort of made it deliberately a little bit messy, almost to sort of track what's going on with it, and basically just to explain through it. And I won't take too long here. So these you can the A, B, C, D, E, and F, you can sort of think of as individual voices or individual pattern generators. And it's all hard-coded so that a pattern like 9331, for example, goes through this. There's a tempo for it. I think in the video we also have a metronome, just so you have some kind of a back beat you can reference while listening to the patterns. And yeah, so in the previous slide we described 4/4 time signatures, but we also created one pattern for 3/4 and one pattern for 5/4 time signatures as well. I think the next slide is the example, the rhythmic example. So if I hit play, I've uploaded these videos. Alex, maybe you can help here. If I hit play on, there you go. So now we're hearing the metronome, and this is the pattern. 9331. And then both play together for that combined pattern. Okay, I'll stop it there. Yeah, you could kind of track the call and response, this palindromic pattern that Alan mentioned, maybe with the first two patterns, and then this one just plays a different time signature. But once again, sort of all agreeable and all work with one another, or at least that's what Schillinger would have us hope and believe. We then took this idea and expanded a little bit further to include not only rhythms and time signatures, but also to generate some new or novel modal scales. And Ellen might talk to that.
If we go back to the presentation slides, we can do that. There we go. So if we go to the next slide. So the idea with this was Schillinger also uses the idea to try and create melodic scale forms from the same type of rhythmic patterns. And he did this by, and it could be done simply enough by a simple subdivision of the time signature. But to create more interest, one approach was to divide the octave, which is 12 notes in the octave. There are 12 intervals within the octave, into an unusual combination. In this case, 7 plus 5 or 5 plus 7. Other examples could be used, but I mean, generally in Schillinger, the idea was that the integers shouldn't be multiples of each other. So that's why we get these odd and interesting variations. So by doing that, subdividing these intervals and to a 7 plus 5 and 5 plus 7, we do the same interference pattern. We get the sort of common 5 to 5 variation from that. Now 5 in terms of interval is quite a large interval of 5 semitones. The idea was then to actually create permutations of the 5. So just by sort of quintinomial permutations, take the 5 into a 3 plus 2 or 2 plus 3. So we end up with a sort of 5 interval variation, 2 plus 3 plus 2 plus 3 plus 2, or whatever it might be. And that creates various scale forms. If we look on the next slide, you'll see those here. So the first example, 2 plus 3 plus 2 plus 3 plus 2, gives us a pentatonic scale, a 5-note scale, 6 notes including the octave. And by these various permutations of the 5, I should say, we get various other scales, which can be interpreted in respect to belonging to some other pentatonic scale. But the idea with Schillinger was that these have a degree of coherence because they are derived from the same schema. And that then they belong to each other. So you have the major and the sort of minor pentatonics and the sort of dominant pentatonics all together. And that's what we used in creating these examples of, and also improvising by sort of spontaneously triggering the different modes or different pentatonic scales as we went with the various examples that we've got. And we can probably show a couple of examples from here. So if we go to the
plucked synth
example that's there. So you can see we were varying some of the modes, PD scales, as we went, just to create some of the variety from those various scales that we generated. The scales could be much more complex than that, but we just sort of went with the pentatonic idea because it's sort of the simplicity at this stage, and the pentatonic scale being sort of foundational scale for all sorts of musical approaches.
Yeah, just to show off maybe its versatility in different contexts, we also applied the same patch essentially to different sonic material, like in context of maybe more ambient music. We have the next example that we can just play briefly, maybe only about 10 seconds or so. AUM synthesizers in and then just to also try something else, we've created or applied this patch to examples with just a string quartet, violins, violas, cellos, and basses. That's the next video example, please.
Yeah, just to say you're into your question time now, but feel free to carry on.
Yeah, well, let's in fact go back to the presentation then, and we'll wrap it up. Thank you. We are at the end here. Whoa, that's gone a little messy. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight as sort of concluding remarks here that this application is not about fidelity to Schillinger's system in some kind of a dogmatic way. It's just a way of showing a historical method that can still be used in modern music making, and even according to Joseph Schillinger himself, who was a reasonably contentious figure, he wasn't interested in replacing anything. The Western tonal harmonic theory is just a way of inspiring creativity, inspiring that next step in composition.
Yeah,
yeah. I think that's us. Happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both of you. So, yeah, any questions here or in Berlin? Not sure. Oh yeah, Berlin control.
In Berlin.
Yep. We have one. Yeah.
Hey, thank you for the wonderful input. I'm just curious if you ran out of time and you also applied this this pattern into the timbre aspect, because I saw about the tonal pattern, the rhythmic pattern, and I was wondering how it would be in to be applied in the character of sound in terms of like harmonic distortions or so on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we actually had another audio example that was applying these patterns to various synthesis parameters, essentially. So we took a reasonably boring synth patch that just sounded like a sawtooth with a bit of filter on it and just a pad, and just used this patch to animate its various parameters. Things like FM amounts, or like you mentioned, harmonic distortion and things. And it's pretty interesting. I think it's about managing ranges at that point, so things don't go too crazy. But maybe too crazy is exactly the point. Yeah, it's I think it pays dividends. Yeah, it's a really interesting place to take it. I think this was one of the last things we sort of thought of, and immediately went we should do something here and do a little bit more work on that side of things. Yeah.
I think that would be a nice prompt to play the video, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I'll just add it to the presentation.
Is it the strings one?
No, it's not the strings one. It's it's actually where can I find it?
That one?
Yeah, can I just drag it on to here?
Try.
Oh, I'm afraid. No, didn't quite happen.
Let's go from the
just
desktop.
1 second. Sorry.
Here
it is.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just a visualizer with audio.
So is this Terra patch example?
Yeah, Terra. Yeah, it's about 10 seconds of or 8 seconds of basically the patch without any changes. So it's just a static sound, and then animation happens.
Okay.
It's a fairly long file. I'm sure you can hear it. You'll stop it there.
Yeah,
that's enough.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just a nice moment of contemplation. Yeah, I was just going to ask about the. Oh, actually, there's probably a better question from Ivan. Let's see. In the synthesis example you're mentioning, how do you select the synthesis parameters for using the method?
It was sort of fairly arbitrary at this stage, although we obviously were looking at things that would create the sort of color contrast that we were after with such a static sound source. So things like, filter and resonance and those sort of things, and subtractive synthesis, but also, trying some different parameters that were available and just seeing what the results were like, but using still the algorithmic sort of changes. As David mentioned, it sort of, you've got to tame it a bit. It can get out of control a bit, but I mean, depending on the circumstance, that could be a desirable thing. So, I mean, you could potentially sort of select particular parameters that are applied for a range of different sounds and keep the same parameters, I guess, as one approach.
Great stuff. So unless there's any question, one more question from Berlin. Yeah, I was just going to.
Is it possible to find this patch somewhere and experiment with it at this stage?
I mean, I'm happy to share it. It was such a. It's fairly easy to recreate, and like I mentioned right at the beginning, it sort of is hard coded. I think the next step would be to make it a universal patch in the sense that you could type in the time signatures and then it would do the permutations. Currently, it's actually only doing 1339 and 9331 and so on, right? The examples that we used in the paper. Yeah, it wouldn't be. I think one of the draws of the system is the accessibility of maths, how it's not that it's not that complicated. You know, you can sort of do it on a piece of paper and apply it like that. So in terms of the PD patch, I'm more than happy to share it if there's a mechanism by which to do that.
Thank you.